Kyle Klingman with Track Wrestling. We have a 3-time NCAA Division III champion. It's Ryan Allen from Wisconsin-La Crosse. He was a 4-time finalist, had the same opponent in the finals all 3 years, Blake Gillis from Wartburg. We'll get into some of how that transpired. And now he's the head wrestling coach at Iowa Grant School in Wisconsin. Also a guy that current head wrestling coach at La Crosse, Dave Malachek, says is funnier than heck. Ryan Allen, how are you?
Good. How's it going? Glad to be on.
I appreciate it. So how do you get the reputation of being so funny? Like what is it about you that makes you so hilarious?
I guess it depends who you ask, I guess. You know, my wife doesn't always think I'm the funniest, but I guess maybe just because I'm pretty upfront about things and, don't really hold back much, I guess.
An interesting scenario here. So you have the current head coach, Dave Malachek. He actually coached against you for the guy that you wrestled in the finals all 3 years, Blake Gillis from Wartburg. First of all, what's that like, wrestling the same opponent 3 years in a row?
It is kind of crazy when you think about it. You start to get to know, what the other guy wants to do pretty well. And, you try not to really think about it, I guess, when you prepare. You just you kind of focus on yourself and try to get your own brain where it needs to be. And you don't want to think about stuff, that's going to slow you down. But Blake was definitely a stud, and we knew he was good on top in college. That's where he, did most of his damage. And so in that respect, it was kind of nice because I knew where he wanted to be, and I tried to stay out of there.
When you look back at it, and it's a crazy year for like the non-Division I, some of the best wrestlers coming out of that, and the Nebraska Omaha Open, you had Blake Gillis, you, Tervel Delagnav, and Les Sigmund, all non-D1 guys in the same bracket. Pretty crazy to think about. What was that like, knowing that maybe the best guys in the country weren't D1?
It was crazy. Les was obviously really, really good. And I remember going to that tournament and thinking, all right, I'm going to get a battle with some of these guys. And might have been my worst tournament in college. Obviously those guys are really good, but I did not wrestle very well that day. But just knowing, I didn't wrestle my best, and I was right there with some of those guys. And, I beat a few of them later on in the year. And, that was just kind of how we trained as a team. We wanted to go wrestle those guys. We were small school Division III, but we knew we were pretty tough, and we wanted to bang with the best, and that's what gets you better. So it was a lot of fun.
What was that like, having split coaches? You had one coach for 2 years and then another for the next 2 years. Does that make a difference in how you execute your game plan?
I don't know how much different, really. I had Coach Fader, who's at Eau Claire now, and he kind of got the ball rolling for me and for as far as college wrestling goes. And then, he was a motivator. If you talk to anybody that knows him, we called him Fader the Persuader. And, he just somehow made you do these things that when you were done, you thought you were, you were the man. He'd run the bluff, and you think, I can't do that. I can't do that 10-mile run. And then you get done and you're like, wow, I'm a stud. And that was kind of Fader's way. And then Coach Score kind of came in, and, he was just tougher than nails on you. There was just like, this is what we're doing. This is how we're doing it. And boom, we did it. And so they kind of had two different styles, but they both, when it comes down to it, they wanted you to work hard and build that confidence up and take it on the mat when it was time.
So what's that like when you graduate? You have the coach coming in, and Dave Malachek coaching the guy that was trying to beat you the whole time. Now he's the head coach, and then you're working with him. Kind of unique scenario.
Right. You'd think, oh, that's a competition. But, all wrestlers, I think, are pretty much wired the same. And when Dave came in, he was just like, oh, yeah, this is the guy. We knew right away, okay, this guy knows what's going on. He's been at Wartburg, who's been obviously dominating. And, he brought that winning, he brought that with him. And everybody kind of trusted him right away. We're like, all right, this guy knows what he's doing. And, Malachek's just kind of straight to the point guy, and everybody kind of loved him, and he fit in really well. So it was fun coaching with him. And I do have a few crazy stories that probably make people laugh, but maybe I'll save those for later.
Can you just tell one right away? We're on the subject.
There's a few, I guess. One of them, I guess, he doesn't have he doesn't do a ton of crazy things, but he has a few nuances, I guess, that we used to kind of make fun of him for. One thing he always did, well, first of all, when he'd come to practice, he had sweatpants and he had knee pads over top the sweatpants. And I think he's had like 11 knee surgeries. So, he walked and his knees were like touching. And he had this weird walk. And I think it was Ross Needham one day dressed up like him and came to practice dressed up like him. And that was a pretty good one. But he always did this thing when he'd sweat, he'd take his finger and he'd wipe off his sweat. So everybody used to do that. We just mocked him all the time doing that. That was a good one. He does play a good air drum, or I should say air steering wheel, drum steering wheel. He plays the drums on the steering wheel really well. And he just loves that 80s rock and roll music. So you've got a few good stories, but I can't tell all of them.
Well, now that you're a high school coach, how do you stay connected with your former school?
The last couple of years, we've been going to Malachek's team camp that he hosts up in the Dells, which is just awesome. I think 60-some teams go there. It's at the Chula Vista, and, we stay connected through that. There's a lot of alumni gatherings that I should probably go to more of. But, he'll text me, send me emails. We stay in contact. How's the season going? What are your guys up to? You got any guys that I need to be looking at? That kind of stuff. So we definitely stay in contact.
Do you ever wonder, clearly you are a Division I caliber talent. Do you ever wonder how you could have done at the D1 national tournament?
Yeah, definitely has crossed my mind, and I've talked about it with a few people, and, it would be great. It would have been really fun to see. I got the privilege to wrestle at the Midlands a couple of years, and so I did get to wrestle some of those guys up there, and it was cool. It was great. I would have liked to, maybe if I would have started D1, that would have been something I would have been interested in. But after starting at La Crosse and building those relationships with coaches and teammates, it was never even really a thought to leave, I guess. So I was happy I went to La Crosse, and I don't think I would change it.
What is it you like about the Division III brand of wrestling?
Well, I guess I can't speak for all schools, but at La Crosse, we really were, I guess our group anyway, the guys that I wrestled with, we were just super close. I mean, whether it was wrestling or not wrestling, when we were doing something, we were together. And maybe it's like that at other, bigger schools too, but I just feel like we were just so close, and everything we did together. And, we weren't doing it, as far, for a scholarship. We were wrestling because we knew we could do some crazy good things, and we wanted to push each other and be the best there was. And I don't know, I guess it's just my teammates is what made it the best.
Do you like having the outlet right now to be a head high school wrestling coach?
Yeah, I love it. I'm actually would be my 10th year here at Iowa Grant. And I don't know, I probably wouldn't be here if I hadn't gone to La Crosse. So it's definitely been great. So it's given me a lot of opportunities.
Tell us about Iowa Grant. It might be confusing for people who see the Iowa part, but there's an Iowa County in Wisconsin. Tell us about what Iowa Grant is and the conglomeration of schools that you coach.
Right on. So I went to Iowa Grant High School myself. What it is there's like 6 or 7 small towns, right around 500-600 people. Half of them are in Iowa County, the other half are in Grant County, and we have one school kind of right on the border, and all those schools come to Iowa Grant. So that's Iowa Grant. It's about, right now we're about 180 kids. When I was in school, we were over 300, so we're kind of down right now. The last few years, I don't know, probably 7 or 8 years, we've co-opted with Highland School District, which is just up the road, which is really small, actually under 100 kids in their high school. But some really good athletes, some really good kids, and I'm glad super glad that we've co-opted with them. It's worked out really well. So.
Is it hard to get kids to come out for wrestling?
Depends which kid you ask, I guess. Some kids, just get a couple matches in, they just love it. Obviously some kids go to one practice and they hate it, but I'm always trying to get kids. A lot of people say, Iowa Grande, well, that's a big farming community, and it used to be, but it's just not like that anymore. We don't have all those farm kids. Most of the farms now have people hired out, to work, and those kids don't stay on the farm and work. So we don't really have a ton of farm kids, but we do have some hardworking kids, and we try to get those kids out. We pulled a few kids off the basketball court, talked them in, hey, come be a part of this. We got a chance to do some good things, and we've actually had some basketball players quit basketball and just boom, we're gonna join, and they turned out to do pretty well. So we're always recruiting. We're just trying all the time.
And then you also coach football too.
Yeah, coach football. We're hoping that we can maybe play some games this fall. With the COVID, it's kind of up in the air. As of right now, there's a school board meeting tonight to decide whether we're pushing to spring or going to try to get some games in the fall. But definitely a good way to get to know the kids. I'm actually the head JV football coach, so as these kids come in, most of them know me already, but I get on them during football. Hey, you'd be a good wrestler. That was a great tackle. You like doing that? Hey, you like grabbing legs? Let's go. So, yeah, it's definitely a good way to get some of those kids out.
When you're in a small community, it's in a smaller wrestling community with Iowa Grande. Do these kids in high school know about the greats in the sport, whether it's Ben Askren from Wisconsin or Jordan Burroughs? What's their level of engagement?
Yeah, some of them do. We don't have a lot, but we have quite a few kids who do start young, and they get involved in some clubs, and they get involved with the youth programs, and they start wrestling, and they go to, tournaments, and they start getting on wrestling things on Facebook, and they do know some of those guys. And I talk about them a little bit, and I'll even send them a link. Hey, watch this Jordan Burroughs match, or watch this Brent Metcalf, or whatever, And a lot of them, maybe 15%, I would say no, but most of them don't. But there are a handful that do. So I try to enlighten them and keep them updated, but I don't know how well it works.
Yeah, how do you change that to make sure kids are engaged in the sport better?
Yeah, in practice, a lot of times I'll read something online, or like I said, a Burroughs quote or a date quote, and just say, hey, this is a quote from a Olympic gold medalist or a 3-time national champ, and hopefully they say who, and maybe look them up later. I don't know, but yeah, we talk about it. A lot of them know him by their shoes nowadays. Oh, I got the Kyle Snyder shoes, so they don't know who he is, but they have his shoes.
Well, if we can look into the future, hopefully there's a Division III national tournament. It's going to be in La Crosse. You excited to go?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I've been there. The last time it was there, it's an awesome venue. With you got all the restaurants in the downtown area. It's awesome up there, and perfect place for it, the La Crosse Center. And I think we're kind of right in the middle as far as we have Minnesota right by us, Iowa right next door, all the Wisconsin people, so shouldn't have to drive too far for most people, and you get those Midwest fans in the seats, and it gets crazy. So looking forward to it for sure.